It starts with a phone call in the middle of the night. A young man is missing. He went out with friends, had a few drinks, and at some point he got separated from the group. His phone goes straight to voicemail. His texts go unanswered. Panic sets in. His family and friends search, they post on social media, they talk to the police. Their days turn into weeks, sometimes months. And then, he's found. He's found in a body of water. A river, a lake, a canal. He's always near where he went missing. The police look at the case. They see a young man at a bar, alcohol. The conclusion seems simple. He was drunk, he got disoriented, he wandered near the water, and he fell in. A tragic accident. The case is closed. But for some, this explanation doesn't feel right. It feels too simple, too clean, it happens too often. Dozens of young, athletic, popular college men all across the northern United States, all vanishing in the same way, all ending up in the water. The pattern is too strong to be a coincidence. And then there's the other thing. The strange detail that ties it all together. Near where the young men are found, or where police think they entered the water, someone finds a smiley face. Sometimes it's painted on a tree, sometimes it's on a bridge abutment, sometimes it's just a simple, almost childish drawing. A circle, 2 dots, a curved line, a smile. It's this detail that gives the theory its name, the Smiley Face Killer. So, who is the Smiley Face Killer? The simple answer is, we don't know. The more complicated answer is, we don't even know if he exists. Or if they exist. The FBI says no. Most local police departments say no. They say it's a series of unfortunate, unconnected accidents fueled by alcohol. But a small group of retired detectives and a criminal justice professor say yes. They say this is the work of a sophisticated, organized group of serial killers. A gang that stalks, abducts, holds, tortures, and then murders these young men before dumping their bodies in the water to wash away the evidence. And the smiley face? That's their signature, their taunt. This is the story of that theory. It's a story about patterns, grief, and the deep human need for answers when there are none. The idea of the Smiley Face Killers didn't come from nowhere. It came from 2 retired New York City Police Department detectives, Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte. They had decades of experience between them. They'd worked homicides. They knew what murder looked like. And when they started looking at these drowning cases, they saw something that bothered them. It started with a single case. Patrick McNeil. In 1997, Patrick, a student at Fordham University, went out for a night in Manhattan. He disappeared. 12 days later, his body was found in the East River near a pier in Brooklyn, miles from where he was last seen. The medical examiner ruled his death an accidental drowning, but Kevin Gannon, who worked the case, was never satisfied. Things didn't add up. Years later, Gannon was retired. He couldn't shake the McNeil case. He started looking for similar cases and found them. A lot of them. He connected with Duarte, his old partner, and another investigator, Dr. Lee Gilbertson, a professor of criminal justice who specialized in gangs. Together, they began to build a database. They traveled the country, talking to families, looking at case files, visiting the locations where bodies were found. What they found was a disturbing pattern. They identified a list of specific factors that repeated over and over again in dozens of deaths across 11 different states, primarily in the Midwest. First, the victim. He was almost always a white male, college age, typically between 19 and 24. He was popular, successful in school, and athletic. He was what people would call a good kid. He was the last person you'd expect to get into serious trouble. Second, the circumstances of the disappearance. He would be out drinking with friends. At some point in the night, he would become separated from his group. In the age of cell phones, this was strange. His friends would try to call, but the phone would be off or dead. He would vanish without a trace. There were rarely any witnesses to what happened next. Third, the location. The disappearances almost always happen in cities with a major body of water, like a river running through the downtown area. La Crosse, Wisconsin, on the Mississippi River. Minneapolis, Minnesota, also on the Mississippi. Chicago on the Chicago River and Lake Michigan. Boston on the Charles River. The list went on. Fourth, the discovery. The young man's body would be found in that body of water. But not right away. It would often take weeks, even months, and the condition of the body was often inconsistent with a simple drowning. Some were found in areas of the river that had already been extensively searched. Some were found upstream from where they were thought to have gone in, which defies the logic of a river's current. Fifth, the official cause of death. Almost every single time, the ruling was accidental drowning. The toxicology reports would often show a high blood alcohol level. For police, it was an open and shut case. Young man drinks too much, stumbles into the river, drowns. End of story. But Gannon, Duarte, and Gilbertson saw something else. They argued that the accidental drowning theory was a convenient way to close a difficult case. They believed these men were not dying by accident, they were being murdered. And then there was the final chilling piece of the puzzle, the graffiti. In a significant number of these cases, a smiley face was found spray painted near the scene. It wasn't always identical. Some were simple, some were more elaborate, some even had horns, like a devil. Gannon and his team believed these were not random acts of vandalism, they were territorial markers. The signature of a killer, or a group of killers. One of the most compelling cases for the smiley face theory is that of Chris Jenkins. In 2002, Chris was a 21-year-old student at the University of Minnesota. On Halloween night, he went to a bar in downtown Minneapolis. He was wearing a Native American costume, he was kicked out of the bar, and his friends lost track of him. He was never seen alive again. For 4 long months, his family searched for him. His body was finally found in the Mississippi River, encased in ice. The police immediately ruled it an accident or suicide. They said he was drunk and fell from a bridge. His parents refused to believe it. Chris was not suicidal. He was a happy, successful student with a bright future. The Jenkins family hired their own private investigators. They fought for years to get the police to take another look. And eventually, they did. A new police chief re-examined the evidence. Witnesses came forward who had been afraid to speak before. The case was reclassified. Chris Jenkins' death was officially changed from undetermined to a homicide. The police now believe he was murdered. While no smiley face was officially linked to the Jenkins case at the time, his death became a cornerstone of the theory. It was proof that at least one of these accidental drownings was, in fact, a murder. It showed that the initial police conclusion could be wrong. For Gannon and his team, it was a massive validation. It suggested that if this one was a murder, how many others were too? The cases continued to pile up. Luke Holman in La Crosse, Wisconsin, 2006. Todd Geeb in Muskego, Michigan, 2005. For Matt Krzyzewski in East Lansing, Michigan, 2009. The stories were all eerily similar. Young men, out with friends, disappeared, found in the water weeks later. And in many of these locations, Gannon and his team documented what they believed were smiley face symbols. A more recent case that brought the theory back into the public eye was that of Dakota James. In 2017, Dakota was a 23-year-old graduate student at Duquesne University, Pittsburgh. He was last seen on security footage walking through a downtown cultural district. He vanished. 40 days later, his body was recovered from the Ohio River about 10 miles downstream. The police ruled his death an accidental drowning. The coroner said there were no signs of foul play. But once again, his parents were not convinced. They hired their own experts, including Dr. Cyril Wecht, a famous forensic pathologist. Wecht examined the autopsy photos and found something that looked like ligature marks on Dakota's neck, suggesting strangulation. He publicly stated that he believed it was a homicide. And then there was the smiley face. A spray-painted smiley face was found on a bridge underpass near where Dakota's body was found. For his family, and for the proponents of the smiley face theory, this was no coincidence. This was the signature. So, what is the theory, exactly? Gannon, Duarte, and Gilbertson don't believe this is the work of one person. A single serial killer couldn't operate across so many states for so many years without being detected. Instead, they propose a far more elaborate and terrifying scenario. They believe there is a well-organized nationwide network of killers. A gang. They think this group communicates online, perhaps on the dark web. They share information and techniques. They might even travel to different cities to help each other. The group is made up of different cells in different parts of the country. This would explain the geographical spread of the cases. According to their theory, the killers target a young man at a bar. They might use a date rape drug like GHB to incapacitate him. GHB is notoriously difficult to detect in a body that has been submerged in water for a long time. Once the victim is subdued, he is abducted. What happens next is the darkest part of the theory. The detectives believe the victims are held for a period of time. They are tortured. They are ultimately murdered. Then, the killers transport the body and dump it in the water. The water acts as a perfect accomplice, destroying evidence like DNA, fingerprints, and fibers. The passage of time and the process of decomposition do the rest. The accidental drowning ruling is the perfect cover. It allows the killers to operate without raising suspicion. A single drowning is a tragedy. 2 is a coincidence. 3 might raise an eyebrow. But when dozens happen across multiple jurisdictions, no single police department connects the dots. Each case is seen in isolation. The smiley face in this version of events is the group's calling card. Well, it's a way of claiming responsibility, a message to other members of their network. And it's a symbol of their power and their ability to get away with murder in plain sight. This theory is compelling. It's a neat narrative that connects a series of tragic events into a single, understandable story. It gives a name and a face to the monster. For the grieving families, it offers an answer that is more palatable than a senseless accident. An accident means their son made a mistake. A murder means their son was a victim, and it directs their anger and grief toward a specific enemy. But it's just a theory. And it's a theory with a lot of problems. The biggest pushback comes from law enforcement, including the highest levels. In 2008, the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit, the same unit famous for profiling serial killers, took a serious look at the smiley face theory. They reviewed the evidence Gannon and his team had gathered. They analyzed the case files of the supposed victims. Their conclusion was unambiguous. The FBI stated that the vast majority of these deaths appear to be accidental alcohol-related drownings. They found no evidence to support the idea of a serial killer or an organized group of killers. They said the links between the cases were tenuous and based on misinformation and speculation. What about the smiley face graffiti? The FBI and many local police officials point out that the smiley face is one of the most common and universal symbols in the world. It is an extremely common piece of graffiti. You can find it spray painted under bridges, on buildings, and on trees in almost any city in America. To find one near a body of water is not statistically significant. It's a classic case of confirmation bias. If you're looking for smiley faces, you will find them. Skeptics also point out that the smiley faces documented by the detectives are not consistent. They are different sizes, different styles, and made with different colors of paint. There is no single unifying design that would suggest a consistent signature from one killer or group. Some are just simple circles with dots, others are more cartoonish. To lump them all together as the work of one gang requires a leap of faith. Then there is the sad, simple reality of alcohol and young men. Statistically, young men are at a much higher risk of accidental death, including drowning. And alcohol is very often a factor. The scenario of a young man drinking heavily, becoming disoriented, and wandering into a body of water is not just plausible, it is tragically common. Urban rivers are often in industrial or poorly lit areas. They have steep banks, strong currents, and cold water. A person who is intoxicated can easily slip and fall in. The shock of the cold water can cause an involuntary gasp, causing them to inhale water. Hypothermia sets in quickly. In such a condition, even a strong swimmer can drown in minutes. The argument that bodies are found upstream, or in places already searched, can also be explained by the complex hydrodynamics of rivers. Water currents are not simple. There are eddies, undertows, and reverse currents, especially near dams, bridges, and bends in the river. As bodies can become snagged on underwater debris for weeks or months before breaking free and surfacing in an unexpected location. The lack of witnesses is also not surprising. These disappearances happen late at night, often in areas with few people around. An abduction is a noisy, messy event that would likely draw attention. A person stumbling alone toward a dark riverbank is much less likely to be noticed. For every point the smiley face theorists make, there is a rational, if less exciting, counter-argument. The victim profile of popular, athletic college students describes a huge demographic of young men who go to bars. The fact that their phones die is common a night of heavy use and cold weather can easily drain a battery. So we are left with two competing stories. One story is a terrifying conspiracy. A secret society of killers is hunting our sons. They are clever, sadistic, and hiding in plain sight. They leave a cryptic symbol to mock the police and the families of their victims. The police are either too incompetent to see the pattern or are covering it up to avoid mass panic. In this story, the world is a dangerous place, but the evil has a face. The other story is a collection of individual tragedies. It's a story about the dangers of binge drinking and the simple, unforgiving laws of physics. In this story, the world is not necessarily evil, but it is indifferent and chaotic. There is no monster to hunt, no conspiracy to uncover. There is only loss, and the hard truth that sometimes terrible things happen for no good reason. The debate is fueled by the pain of the families left behind. When a parent loses a child, it was just a drunken accident is a very difficult explanation to accept. It feels like a dismissal of their child's life. It can even feel like blame. The smiley face theory, for all its horror, offers a different narrative. It turns their son from a statistic into the victim of a great injustice. It gives them a fight to fight, a cause to champion. It gives their loss a larger meaning. This is why the theory endures, despite the lack of hard evidence and the dismissals from the FBI. It persists in documentaries, online forums, and true crime podcasts. It taps into a primal fear that there are organized forces of evil at work just beneath the surface of our society. Kevin Gannon and his team continue their work. They have a list of dozens of cases they believe are connected. For them, the evidence is overwhelming. They see the patterns so clearly that they cannot understand how others don't. They believe they are fighting for justice for young men whose murders have been swept under the rug. They see themselves as the only ones willing to speak the truth, no matter how unbelievable it sounds. Is it possible that they are right? Yes, it's possible. It's impossible to prove a negative. You can't definitively prove that a secret murder gang doesn't exist, and the reclassification of the Chris Jenkins case to a homicide shows that the initial police assessment can be wrong. It's conceivable that other cases have been misclassified as well. Perhaps some of these deaths are murders, even if they aren't all connected. But is it probable? Most experts say no. The evidence required to prove such a vast conspiracy is simply not there. There are no confessions, no witnesses to the abductions, no definitive forensic links between any of the cases. All that exists is a pattern of circumstantial details and a piece of graffiti that is one of the most common in the world. So, who is the Smiley Face Killer? Maybe he's a phantom, a bogeyman created out of grief and a desire for answers. Maybe he's the personification of a series of tragic, unrelated accidents that we struggle to accept as random. Or maybe, just maybe, he and his network are out there right now watching, waiting, and laughing at how well their cover story has worked. The truth is, we don't know. The smiley face stares back at us, a blank and simple symbol. What it means, whether it's a killer's signature or just a meaningless doodle on a wall, depends entirely on what you're willing to believe. And for the families of the drowned men, belief in a killer is sometimes the only thing that makes sense of the senseless. The mystery remains unsolved, floating in the dark, cold water where so many young lives have ended.